Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the last week of Unit 2. Yesterday, I released the final lesson, which is a pretty straightforward small lesson, but then it's got a lot of work at the end of it. Or at least it seems like a lot of work, but it really isn't. You've already done all the groundwork that you need to do in order to complete the last 3 activities, and so it really is a matter of just sort of tying things together. So, let me start with the least of all the activities. The self-evaluation of how well you have contributed to the discussion. So in the last video, I talked about how important the discussions were, and I alluded to the fact that you would be, well, I alluded to it, I said straight up, you're going to be graded on these, and so you are going to be graded on your contributions, but I want to give you a chance to tell me what you think you deserve in terms of levels. How well have you contributed? So it's going to be a nice quick, like 4 sentences, 5 sentences, just an explanation as to what level do you deserve and why do you deserve it. And then with that in mind, I'll have a look and see your actual contributions, how many contributions you made, and the quality of those. So that's what you're going to be graded on. It's number 1, it's contributing regularly, but then number 2, the quality. So to give you an example of what I would be looking for, when you make a post and your post is it's lengthy because you have put thought into your work, that's good. If you make a post and it's lengthy because it's just sort of like rambling filler, that's not so good, and so you don't get any marks for that sort of thing. Same with replying to somebody's post. If you reply to somebody's post and you make like a respectful objection or even like a respectful agreement or a thoughtful agreement, that's worth something. But replying to just say, oh, good ideas, or that was really, I enjoyed that post, that really doesn't do anything for the conversation, you know. Maybe makes the person feel a little bit better because somebody said something nice about their work, but really I'm looking for people making contributions that make the whole community think a little bit more. So that's the least of the activities. The second of the least activities is going to be one response based on the "is this who I am" forum. So throughout the unit, you've been adding to that forum. You started off with 1 post, and then you added ideas based on doing a variety of little activities. And the other thing is, the entire unit has been about individuals and you as an individual, and thinking about who you really are and what your identity really is, and the way that people sometimes present an identity or like an outward persona or costume that isn't really them, and a lot of thinking about you and the influences on you also. The sanity collage, for example, thinking about all of the different things that have sort of like influenced you and caused you to become the person who you have become. I always like to think about it, for anybody who read To Kill a Mockingbird when you were in grade 9, you'll get this. The idea that you could take a person and put them in one family in one time in history, and that person turns out to be a certain way. Move that same person, that same mind, and put that mind into a body of a person at a different time in history or a different place, and they become a very different person. So with all those ideas in mind, you're going to make one final response about who you really are, and it's going to be in the form of a mind map, because you have lots of experience with mind maps. Now, for those of you who don't like doing mind maps, you don't have to do it in the form of a mind map. You could do this in the form of just notes. It's totally up to you, but I did get a lot of very good mind maps in Unit 1, and so I think that's going to be just a good way of sort of taking all these different ideas and stuff and like formally putting them together into like one document. So that shouldn't take very long because, of course, you already have most of this on paper already, like in that forum post if you've been posting to it and adding to it, and also if you've gotten something out of this unit, you should have lots to say. So those are the 2 small things, but we have one large activity. You're going to be doing another lab, and this lab is going to be very similar to the other labs that you've done, but with the very big difference that you are going to be conducting a fair amount of research. It's not going to be a 20-minute lab this time. That pair of surveys, which, yes, you should have a pair of surveys if you want to get reliable results, because the lab rat, and if you don't know what I mean by the lab rat, then you've missed something. The lab rat makes it very clear that you need to have at least 2 surveys in order to get reliable results. You're going to be using your surveying skills to get information in order to address the research question of, does gender influence the extent to which a person becomes secure in their identity? And what this means is simply this. Some people do not present outwardly who they are inwardly. And this is a concept that we've talked about in this unit, and it's come up. It's right back to like Kill Bill in that first lesson. And you know yourself, and you all commented on this, and most of you said, that I remember anyways, most people said that they feel that they present their identity, they don't put on a costume. Some people said they used to, but now by grade 11, they become more comfortable with themselves. But a lot of people, just judge for yourself. When you take a look at your high school, you probably see people who you know, because you knew them in elementary school, who are putting forth a persona that is not the real them. They're trying to be something who they are not, and that indicates that they're not comfortable with who they really are. So as a researcher, we want to do a little bit of research into this, this phenomenon and try to figure it out. And one thing that social scientists often research is gender. And so we're going to look, does gender influence this? Are males more likely to be secure in themselves? Or are they more likely to be less secure, insecure with themselves? Are females more likely to be the ones who are secure and willing to use, to put forward their honest, actual identity? Or are females less likely to do that? Or is there no difference? So that's basically what we're looking to do with this research. You're going to be doing some research in order to collect information in order to answer this question. That's what your lab is all about. The quality of your work is going to be influenced by the quality of your surveys. And again, you should have 2. So craft those surveys well, submit them to me so that I can give you some feedback before you start going off and doing your research. And I'm going to make those surveys my priority as far as marking goes. I'll have a look at your survey as soon as I can. Use my feedback in order to make it better, because you probably won't get it perfect the first time. And then use that survey to collect information, and that information will then help you to answer your research question. So you're doing a lab just like you've done other labs. It's going to be in the same format. It's going to be a professional looking document, same steps and everything, with the difference being that it's going to take more time to do, and it's also different because it's in the form of a survey, not in the form of some social experiment. All right? Now, as far as what your questions should look like, because somebody emailed me this morning with questions, and they're unclear about what should my questions look like in terms of like the overall goal. So you're trying to figure out for each individual test subject, you're trying to figure out if this person is being who they really are all the time, or some of the time, or none of the time. So ask them questions that is, by answering the question, it's going to give you information that's going to help you to see this. So ask them a question about, do they find that they act differently among their peers than they do when they act, among adults or teachers or things like that? Or do they find that, do they feel safe with, presenting who they really are to the world? Any questions you can come up with, but you want to give them questions where it's not obvious what you're trying to measure, because if they catch on to it, they might answer your questions in a way that they tell you what they think you want to hear, not what's actually true. And also, you don't want the questions to sound like too analytical or lame or boring, because then they might not actually answer them thoughtfully at all. They might want to just get the survey over with. Okay, So, but that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to figure out, if I've got, this kid named Marshall who I'm surveying, I want to know based on his answers, does this kid put on a costume every day? Or does he behave like himself, his true self every day? Or does he put on a costume some of the time, and how much is that some? Is it most of the time? Is it a little bit of the time? That sort of thing. And then when you've got a whole lot of people surveyed, you can take a look at the results and then compare them by gender and come up with a conclusion that, oh, based on my results, it looks like this gender is more likely to be themselves, as opposed to this gender is more likely to be putting on a costume every day. All right, so those are the 3 things you're doing. This lab, which is going to take most of the time out of the 3 activities, a mind map, which shouldn't take you very long, and a quick response to how well you've been contributing to the discussions, which should take you probably 10 minutes to go back and look at your discussion posts and to answer honestly, how much have you contributed in this unit. All right, so this is the only work that you've got for the whole week. So the unit wraps up on Friday, and we start the next unit on Monday. As always, please get in touch with me if you need any help or have any questions.